Hello, and welcome to this week's module from the Anger Cure. This week, I'm going to start to explore how what we put in our mouths may relate to the way we feel, and in particular, of course, to our anger. Our relationship with food can be extremely complicated, and we will continue to explore this on a regular basis as the months go past. I like food, as you might have guessed, but I have come to learn that food doesn't always like me. The more I become aware of what I eat, the more I can see the effect of different foods on my physical health. Some foods make me feel bloated and lethargic. Some make me energized. Some affect my sleep. Today, we are going to broaden that awareness to encompass our mental health. I want to make it clear from the outset this week that neither myself nor Emily are qualified nutritionists. However, we strongly believe, and the scientific evidence supports this, that what you eat can make a huge difference to your mood, either positively or negatively. There's also a growing evidence on the effect of gut bacteria on your mental health. In fact, modern research of the vagus nerve identifies a cluster of nerve endings within your stomach, which effectively act as a second brain. So when we talk about having a gut reaction to something or to someone, it may be more real than you think. We will explore both these ideas in more depth later on in the Anger Cure. But for today's video, I would simply like to introduce the idea that your diet may play a part in your anger process and invite you to explore how this connection may work for you. We will look at a couple of areas where food may be causing a problem and discover some foods that might help. Let's start with coffee and caffeinated drinks. Now, I am definitely a fan of my coffee. I spend far too much of my income in those fancy coffee shops. A hot, strong cup of coffee is definitely a part of my morning regime. But what if that coffee habit is also making me angry? If you drink coffee or caffeinated energy drinks, you're putting your body in a state of fight or flight. Excess caffeine intake can lead to an increase in cortisol production. And yes, that is exactly the same hormone we talked about when we discussed the body's fight or flight response. So that cup of coffee might just be adding to your stress and in turn leading to an increase in your anger. Now, this isn't necessarily the case for everybody, but find out which kind of person you are. Notice if you feel more wired or highly strung after you drink coffee or energy drinks. If you're aware that you become jittery, consider cutting down or eliminating caffeine from your daily routine. Perhaps swap the decaffeinated coffee or to green tea, which is still caffeinated but much less harsh on your system. There's so much advice on the internet about cutting down. Do the research for yourself. You don't have to go cold turkey. So the next interesting area to explore is anger and your blood sugar. I'm sure we've all seen kids rushing about on a sugar high, and most of us will have experienced being hangry, that combination of hunger and anger we feel when we're running on empty. Eating excessive amounts of refined sugar, and that can be as little as 6 teaspoons a day, can cause unnatural highs and lows in your blood sugar. And if your blood sugar gets too high too quickly, your body's natural response is to act to bring that sugar level down. Unfortunately, with our tendency towards highly refined sugar foods nowadays, this is happening more often, leaving us to crash, feeling moody and irritable. When your blood sugar is too low, your brain responds to it as a primitive stress signal. This is why blood sugar can have a very negative effect on your mood and your ability to cope with situations that normally you would handle well. Low blood sugar means the brain goes into food finding mode, but the conscious mind doesn't realize this and instead just interprets the signals as anger, depression, or anxiety. meaning often you become overly sensitive, easily frustrated and snappy. So take a look at how you can regulate your blood sugar and by extension your mood by eating foods that help keep your blood sugar stable. Different things work for different people, but think about exploring food with a low glycemic index. These are foods like brown rice, brown pasta, and brown bread, where the sugars they contain are not so quickly transferred into your bloodstream, therefore not having the same effect as eating white refined sugars. Particularly look to avoid foods high in refined sugar, such as cakes, sweets, biscuits, and fizzy drinks. So what about the foods that might help us with our anger? One of France's top chefs, Jean Robuchon, has written a book called Food and Life, and he suggests eating certain foods will reduce anger. These include mollusks, oysters, clams, scallops, mussels, grains, and vegetables such as fennel and celery, blackberries, and black soybeans. Whether or not eating oysters will help keep your temper at bay, I don't know. But what is for sure is that scientists are making links between different mineral deficiencies and the body's stress response. Research has been done into magnesium, a mineral which is important for many of the body's functions, including blood sugar regulation. The research implied that a magnesium deficiency can cause anxiety, depression, and irritability. Looking at it the other way around, stress can also cause a magnesium deficiency. It all becomes a bit of a vicious cycle if we're not careful. On the screen are a list of foods that may be rich in magnesium. Why not try adding some of these to your diet? Zinc is another mineral to consider. In 2010, a Japanese study found daily zinc supplements given to young women signified decreases in hostility, anger, and depression. Whilst we'd recommend you speak to a nutritionist before adding any supplements to your diet, it may be worth looking to include foods in your diet that are rich in zinc. Again, some of these are on screen, in fact, including some of my favourites. I'm a big fan of chickpeas, particularly when they're made up into hummus. As I said at the start of the video, neither myself or Emily are trained nutritionists, but we are both convinced of the link between food and mood. In fact, we both view the mind and the body as one system, where what we do to our body affects our mind and vice versa. For the rest of this week, why not keep a journal that charts both your food and your mood? You may be surprised at what you find. As always, we'd love to hear how this works for you, so please post in the Facebook group where Emily and I will enjoy reading your comments. Have a great week, and I'll see you in 7 days' time.